have finally started my life over." My husband said those words with a bright, satisfied smile the second my signature landed on our divorce papers. Sitting beside him on the couch was a young woman in a yellow sundress, gripping his arm like a prize she had already won. Neither of them noticed the small worn notebook sitting quietly on the coffee table, the one thing that had kept him alive for 22 years, and the one thing he was about to lose without even realizing it. My name is Diane, and for over 2 decades I was married to a man named Gregory, a former vice president at a manufacturing company in Ohio. When he first got sick, I was working full-time as a registered nurse, and I quietly took on the second full-time job of keeping him breathing, timing his medications down to the minute, tracking every tremor in his hands, and fighting his insurance company for coverage he never even knew existed. Before I keep going, if this is your first time here, welcome to the Family Tales, the channel where real family stories come out into the light. Stay with me, because what happened to my husband after that divorce is something neither of us saw coming. Gregory never once thanked me for any of it. Taking care of him was just my duty, he would say, since I was a nurse anyway and used to that sort of thing. When his new girlfriend, Brittany, patted his arm and told him she would take care of everything from now on, he beamed at her like a man who had finally been set free. I did not argue. I did not cry in front of them. I simply picked up my purse, reminded him to bring his medication log to his next appointment, and walked out the front door into the cool evening air, feeling 22 years of weight lift off my shoulders with every step. On the walk to the train station, I called the hospital and asked them to remove me as Gregory's medical proxy and emergency contact, effective immediately. The receptionist paused for a long moment before saying she understood. Gregory had no idea what he had just lost. The appointment scheduling, the insurance overrides, the daily coordination with his doctor, all of it had only run smoothly because I was working behind the scenes every single day, and none of it was going anywhere with me. I moved into my daughter Megan's small apartment that same night, and for the first time in years I fell asleep without setting an alarm to check on someone else's breathing. The next morning brought the first crack in Gregory's new life. The pharmacy called me, confused because Brittany had come in claiming to be his caregiver but had no idea about his updated dosages, and had laughed off the pharmacist's warnings, saying Gregory told her his pills were basically just vitamins. Gregory had lied to her about the severity of his illness just to look strong, and now that lie was about to catch up to both of them. A few days later, a social worker called me in a panic because Gregory's insurance renewal paperwork was due within the week, and I was the only one who had ever handled it. I told her gently that it was no longer my responsibility. Gregory did not even know where those forms were kept, let alone how to fill them out, and without that renewal, his medical bills would jump to thousands of dollars a month the moment it expired. Before I tell you what happened at his next appointment, if this story has pulled you in, take a second and hit subscribe on the Family Tales, because next week I am sharing a story about a family secret buried for 20 years that finally came undone. Gregory walked into that appointment with Brittany at his side, confident it would be the same easy 5-minute visit it always was. Instead, his doctor sat him down and read from my old medication log line by line, the tremors I had caught in his hand, the midnight breathing problems I had recorded and never told him about directly to spare his pride, and the slow progression of his disease that only I had been tracking closely enough to notice. Brittany went pale beside him. She had signed up for a wealthy, healthy older man, not a patient who needed round-the-clock monitoring, and within days she packed her things and left a note on the counter instead of a goodbye. That night, alone in his condo with a mountain of unsorted pills and no idea which one treated which symptom, Gregory called me in a panic, begging me to come back. I told him calmly that I had never abandoned him for 22 years, but he had abandoned me as his wife long before that divorce was ever signed. I told him everything he needed was written in the notebook I left behind, wished him well, and hung up the phone for the last time. Within a week, Gregory collapsed alone in his condo and was rushed to a public hospital with no family listed to authorize his care. His sister refused to be his guarantor once she learned what it would actually cost her. His own daughter, Megan, told him plainly over the phone that she had watched her mother sacrifice everything for him for years, and she was not going to sacrifice her own life to do the same. Gregory was left facing a mountain of medical debt, an uncertain future in a care facility, and the quiet, devastating truth that the only person who had ever truly protected him was the one he had thrown away. I did not do any of this out of revenge. I simply stopped carrying a life that was never mine to carry alone, and let the truth of what I had been doing for 22 years finally reach the surface on its own. These days, I work at a small clinic near my daughter's apartment. I water a small plant on the balcony every morning, and I sleep through the night without listening for anyone's breathing but my own. If someone in your life quietly holds everything together without ever being thanked for it, tell them you see it before the day comes when they finally decide to stop.